Hello. I had an idea of what I wanted to talk about today for my next Shraft vlog, or whatever, Innerspace Explorer, I guess we're calling this. And it was going to be about explaining a concept, like a core idea of Advaita Vedanta, which is Brahman and Maya, which is the ultimate reality is Brahman, and Maya is the appearance, that everything that appears within Brahman. So Brahman is, I guess I'll briefly say it, but like Brahman is the ultimate reality. It's existence, consciousness, bliss, which may like the existence consciousness part may like be like, okay, yeah, I can see why that would be existence. At least is a pretty easy sell of like, yeah, like it's, how could you go beyond existence? How could something that doesn't exist, right? Makes sense. Consciousness is like a little bit harder of a sell, and then bliss is like way, like, until you've experienced it directly as like this is the nature of existence. You're never going to buy. I feel like it's not bought into until it's seen directly. Um, but Maya is the appearance that appears within it. But here's the thing. I think there's plenty of time for me to discuss philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. I was going to do it through the lens of talking about Parmenides, who's an ancient Greek philosopher who talked about the nature of being itself. Whereas a lot of philosophers shy away from the idea of like talking about what exactly is being directly. And a lot of philosophers talk about beings and the nature of manifest things that you can observe. Um, there's a solid tradition of people in the West, and like definitely in the East, that talk about the nature of being itself. And it's something that we, like, I can only think of like a good handful of philosophers who like actually like raise that question and address it. And it is Parmenides of ancient Greece. He's like pre-Socratic. And then there's Heidegger, who was a Nazi, who talked about the nature of being, called it Dasein, like being itself, as opposed to beings. And I think when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, before all is said and done, before I fucking retire Innerspace Explorer, I'm gonna talk about these people. But they're so, like, as I was like sitting down, like, this is off the cuff. This is the real genuine shit that you're getting from me right now. So this is like, you're welcome. You're welcome for my honesty and my forwardness. I was about to sit down and be like, I'm going to talk about Parmenides and use it as a framework to explain something from Advaita Vedanta, and like, there's plenty of time to do that. But like, as I was sitting down to do it, I'm like, I don't really. It's not speaking to me right now to do that. Um, but like, what is speaking to me is like the compulsion to speak. I think for the longest, like, I think that's what I want to talk about today, is like the pressure, the inner pressure of that feeling of there's something in me that I need to get out, that I need to express into language so that other people can understand where I'm coming from and potentially relate to what I'm saying. And so that I can be understood and feel a little less isolated. My like, for the longest time, on, like, as soon as like, this whole spiritual journey shit for me has been really characterized by seeking direct, starting in when I started meditating in 2021, seeking direct experience for the claims that people were having throughout the history of religion. Because like, I think there's two sides of religion. For the most part, there's two main paths. There's one path which is like, there's the doctrine of the formal front facing practice, which says, hey, we have these tenets, you should believe them, you should follow these moral principles, basically do what I say. Like there's this wisdom that's handed down, and you should follow it as a rule. And like that's like the majority of religion, I would say. And then there's this other path, which is the mystics path, which sounds like kind of like artsy fartsy woo woo, where it's like, hey, instead of like taking anyone else's word for it, like why don't you like try to investigate the claims for yourself first with your rational mind, like try to wrap your mind around it, but then ultimately as time goes on you sacrifice that and you open yourself in, like it's Meister Eckhart, a Christian mystic, said, in order to find God you have to sacrifice God. You have to give up your idea of it to find it, because ultimately what is being described in all of these traditions is ineffable, which means it cannot be effed, which means it cannot be described, it cannot be captured in language. Which I guess I'm like, the goofy thing that I'm trying to communicate today is for the majority of my journey, I was like from the beginning, from the drop, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do me as a ego. I'm gonna do the world a service, and I'm going to dive into the depths of the spiritual realm, be it in my mind, be it on wherever it takes me. I'm gonna investigate the shit for myself, see it for myself, have direct experience of it. But then I'm like, it appeared to me very critical that I needed to turn around and be able to adequately explain or transfer this experience to other people, so that I could convince myself, that I could verify from others verifying it for, like I could pass my experience on to someone else, they could verify for me like they are experiencing something similar or comparable, and like it's peer reviewed. It's a peer reviewed scientific method of spirituality. But like it was really, I wanted to be the guy who was able to capture in language that which you cannot capture in language. I just thought I was that fucking cool of a dude. And I guess like over the years, I've come to a couple interesting things have happened that I can highlight. One is that, that notion that I needed to pass it on, that I needed to get someone else to experience what I was experiencing so that I could be verified, so that it could be peer reviewed. That notion was strongest when I had the least amount of experience for myself. I had as I was able to quiet my mind in meditation, see in air quotes what consciousness is more and more, without the constant chatter of the mind, or more specifically, the mind can continue. That's fine. You don't actually have to stop the mind. I think I've addressed that in a previous episode. But it's more, it's seen as like passing. Like I bumped the mic, so sorry. But it's seen as a passing thing where you sit and you watch the thoughts, and the thoughts arise, they persist for a time, and then they part. And everything, you over time, you realize not only are my thoughts like that, but literally everything that appears, it arises, it persists for a time, and then it falls away. It is true of literally every object. Every object of awareness does this. But the awareness that it appears in, and this is a sell for people who think that this is going to be a pitch. Like, I don't think if you believe that your consciousness is a byproduct of your body, then that's where pretty much you're left on that level of, once my body dies, the consciousness also disappears. You can't see it anymore, so therefore we there's no verification that it exists. And fair enough. But from your experience, consciousness is a consistent feature from always. It is a fundamental part of your experience because your experience is built on it, right? It's I don't know. I'm being really soft gloved about it, but like to me, all of existence is like that, and like existence and consciousness are very much tied up in each other. And here I go. I fucking found myself down the avenue of explaining shit again. When the whole point of this video is that the more that I see that for myself, the less that I feel like I need to articulate and communicate this to someone else to make it be more real for myself. Like it's not, I can't, I'm at a point now where it's so baked in real to me that like consciousness is the nature of existence itself. That it's just a fundament. It is the fundamental. You can't even call it a thing. It is no thing. It is that in which all things appear. That's just so like my consistent all the time reality that no explaining it to someone else can make that be more real for me. Now it serves a different function. And I guess it's been serving this function for a while. I like to talk about it partially because it's exciting and it on a real level it does feel like it's one of the biggest motivating factors of my life is this quest. And I think sharing it with other people who I'm close with is a means. But I talk about other interests like music and some video games or any number of things that I'm interested in. Other shit that is like less. I don't want to say high stakes, but like less core to where I'm at. It's part of letting someone into my life, to my mind, and saying, "Hey, here's what's going on." If you like, because I want people to like, to the extent that I continue to play this character in the game of life, I like having people along for like if people are going to be close to me, I want them to actually know me for real and not know some like more surface version than it really is, which doesn't mean I have to divulge all of my deep dark secrets of everything I've ever done wrong. But when something is big and critical to my lived experience from moment to moment, such as the shit that I'm making these videos about, it's something that I guess the difference is now that it's not that there's this pressure, pressure's a good word. There isn't this this impulse that there's like a gulf. There's like a gulf between where I feel like where I'm at and where other people are at that has to be bridged. I think a lot of people do think deeply about their experience, and they don't necessarily have the same philosophical leanings as me, and whatever. That's not a big. It's not a problem. It's not. I don't need to get anyone to agree with me. It's not like, I don't want to say it's useless, but like there's no. It's just not important. It's just not important to get people to agree with me. But like I like engaging with people on that discussion level, as well as I like engaging with people on like the seemingly mundane stuff too, because it's fun. I think this is actually, I'm starting to get a sense of where this video is going, but to wrap up what I'm currently talking about is there isn't this need. There isn't this like pressing need that I have to get people to understand where I'm coming from. Like I don't have to I don't have to actually transfer the experience of what it's like to be me into someone else's psyche. That doesn't need to happen. They can have their own experience, and that's actually a beautiful, amazing. That's a gift. That's a gift that we have diversity of experience. It's like, I guess one way to say it would be that despite the fact we're all different waves of different size and shape on the same ocean, but we're all at the end of the day the same goddamn water. And I guess before the water part, like we're all the same ocean. We're all different we're activities at different we are each what the ocean is doing at a particular location. It is the activities of each individual person are just the activities of the ocean where you are. And there's no utility in making the waves uniform. Like it is in no way important for a wave to be the same as any other wave. Especially if a wave recognizes me as a wave, right? Me as this separate individual can recognize its nature as, at the end of the day, the same goddamn water as everything else. There isn't this pressure of, oh, my wave has to match someone else's wave. Or my wave is richer than your wave, or my wave is taller than your wave, or any fucking comparison shit falls by the wayside once you realize it's all the same fundamental substance. To go into what I was just thinking about a moment ago was all of this philosophical stuff that I've been into since about January or February 2022. I've been into something called Nonduality, which I'm gonna refer to a Google type resource. What is non-duality? And we're gonna non-duality, beyond the illusion of separation. Non-duality is a philosophical and spiritual concept that suggests there is no fundamental separation or duality in existence. It challenges the conventional view of the world as composed of distinct or separate entities, such as the self and the other, the mind and the body, the observer and the observed. So essentially, it's saying that at the core, there's a fundamental unity underlying all things. It's typically described as either consciousness or being or pure awareness, right? That is the fundamental connecting force of everything. And that we experience an illusion of separation. We have this apparent individuality, and it's a creation of the mind that it appears that things are separate from each other. But in actuality, it's all the same existence. It's all the same fundamental existence. And think about that. Wrestle with that. Is if you see two objects. I don't know what's in your vicinity that I can't point to anything. This is an audio log. I can't point to anything in your direct life. But there are hypothetically there are objects around you, and there's you could say any two objects. We perceive them as there's this and then there's this other thing, but they are the same existence. It's the difference between, I guess ultimately I'm going to talk about probably Heidegger. It's Heidegger's difference between beings, plural, lowercase, beings, and being, capital, singular. It's all the same being, but it appears to be different beings. But it's all the same being. It's all being together. It's all being at the same time. And sometimes people will call in non-duality. There's a whole thing of a lot of young people on YouTube will make non-duality videos, and they've had ideally they've had direct experience with this sort of information. It's not just intellectual stimulation for them, but try to articulate as best they can what the experience of non-duality is like, and they do it to varying degrees. And like they're all these days, like for a while I was into those, like just random, like typically young people who had experienced, supposedly, hypothetically, we don't know anyone's internal experience, but they were claiming to have experienced non-dual awakening. And like you see through the separation, you see the united being of all things. You don't actually see nothing. Nothing is different about your physical sight. It's a conceptual falling away of the belief in like separate entities. Like you no longer like you still see, you're receiving the same visual stimuli that you always were, but the framework with which it is understood is different, and that's kind of what it comes down to. I'm laying the foundation of what non-duality is and how I came across it, so that I can make another point later. And I realize we're at 20 minutes, so I probably got like 10 minutes to wrap this up, but we'll see. I'm actually not pressed. Like I'm comfortable with allowing these things to go as long as they need. So we'll see how long. I'll probably stop making. Ideally I would stop making comments about wrapping it up or whatever, because they never come true. I never do what I'm gonna say. I follow my gut, and that's where I'm at. The perceptual filter of separate objects is removed, and you perceive directly the fundamental unity of all things. And it's not some like sometimes people call it a mystical experience, and it can feel that way. Like it can actually give you like a rush of like, holy shit, you see it for the first time. It's exciting, it's interesting. It actually can provide you like a deep underlying sense of peace. I feel like I first encountered non-duality as like an idea in like February 2022, and by April or May 2022, I like had a glimpse of it for the first time. And I'll probably make a video about that. I won't get into it now. But I had a glimpse. I had my first glimpse, and for the longest time I called it like, oh, that's my ego death moment. I perceived the non-separation of all things, and like there was I don't have to get into it now, but experienced it directly for myself, wrestling with non-duality, and then come to October 2022, I discover Advaita Vedanta, which is like the formal Hindu school of non-duality, which is like, at least 1,500 years old. And really start learning in a more robust, like not like these are kids on YouTube trying to explain non-duality kind of way, more like in like here's the ancient texts, here's what they say about non-duality, here's how they can explain the mechanics of all this complicated philosophy. Long story short, got really, really, really immersed in non-duality, and it was like, oh, ironically, there was this duality that arose in me of, oh, well, when we start out in life, and we pick up our conceptual frameworks of our parents and our culture, there's this fundamental underlying belief in duality, this fundamental separation of things. Whether it's me separate from you, me the speaker separate from you the audience, it's me separate from the world, it's or like in the fundamental way of most religion, there's me, and then there's God somewhere else, and I'm forever separate from God. Like religion says that you can like make your peace with God, that you can like come to like you can work out a relationship between these two separate things that works out in your favor ultimately. But there's an eternal distance between you and that. Advaita Vedanta fundamentally says the first thing that Advaita Vedanta tells you is that you are that. That whatever difference that you perceive between what you believe to be yourself and any other anything, it's telling you that you are that. That there is no separation. And the ultimate reality that I've been talking my way around for the past while. You are that. You are the existence, the very existence, the foundational existence upon which all seeming different beings arise. You are that ground of being, as Meister Eckhart called it. He said, the ground of my soul and the ground of God are one in the same ground. And Advaita Vedanta says you are that ground of being. And you could never be anything else. We appear, we in an illusory sense, we appear to be separate things from it. But in fact, it is the very ground of being appearing as this. There was a long time, long time, until very, very recently, where I felt that I had to push away duality to experience and make real for myself and to have, it was already real. I knew that in an intellectual sense that non-duality was the truth. But in order to see it for myself, I felt as though I had to push away duality. Ironically, this creates a duality between non-duality and duality. Now that at this stage, where I'm at now, since about May 2020, towards the end of May, May 22nd, let's say, of 2024 this year, what were glimpses of non-duality, which I had two major ones. One was the one I mentioned in 2022, probably in April, I think. And one that was a pretty short one. That was maybe an hour and a half of experiential non-duality, if you want to call it that. And then there was one in summer 2023, which was 4 or 5 hours long, which was not only experiential non-duality, but simultaneously the bliss that was described by Advaita Vedanta, that the fundamental reality is existence, consciousness, bliss. And I felt once I fully embraced in both my emotional framework and intellectual understanding the non-separation of all things, that in a true sense, you can never not be home. You are exactly where you're supposed to be because you are it. There is no separation from anything. It was a full, words cannot capture it, and I know this, and that's part of my original message of this video. But it was this completeness. It was this this full feeling of the ultimate reality is full, and it experienced as my true nature is full, and this world is it's full as a result of the ultimate reality is full. This world is appearance within that ultimate reality. Therefore, this world is full as well. It's the same fullness. Now, fast forward to now, and I have experiential non-duality solidly. It's been a little over 2 months now, and there's been moments where life stresses come back in and kind of appear to knock me out of it. But at the end of the day, it's been pretty solid, such that I go to work, I feel whole. I feel full in the existential way. I take the train home from work, I feel full in the existential way. I walk the dog, I feel full in the existential way. I talk to my friends on the internet, I feel full in the existential way. I play fucking video games, I feel full in the existential way. I do fucking laundry, I feel full in the existential way. I do the dishes, I feel full in the existential way. I do meditation, I'm no longer meditating to try to experience something. I'm meditating just because it feels great to just sit and just vibe. And like it's not even like there's no longer like like I have a truly goal-less practice, which is what they talk about in Zen, of like not having a destination you're trying to get to. That meditation itself is a form of enlightenment. And like I just feel it. I just feel it pour through the entirety of my life. I feel it as I'm saying these very words. I can it doesn't bar me from any activity that appears in the dualistic realm. And that's the point that I'm getting to, is there is no non-dual world and dual world. It's one existence. It's one existence, and I still get to play the game of apparent separation. I get to be a seeming character in this melodrama of life, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Like there isn't this pressure of there's something that I have to accomplish in my life that's like a truly. In a real sense, I feel like I have done what I came here to do, which is to realize the nature of existence. Like that kind of feels like I did that. But the story doesn't end. The story continues on. And I used to think, oh, well, the next step is to try to like wake up as many people as you possibly can. But like, that's not even necessary either. Like it's... If someone's on the path, or like starting on the path, or like would benefit from maybe meditating even in a secular way, I can make myself available and be there to say to them, to provide information that I would have found useful, maybe, or even better than that, just listen to them accurately and respond in a caring manner. It doesn't even there's no fucking sell. There's nothing that I have to like push someone in a particular direction. Just literally being with people. Like, even though I fundamentally, to my fucking bones, realized that it's all the same goddamn water, all of it is the same fundamental being substance. It's all the same. That doesn't, because people experience an apparent separation, there's a part of me that needs to honor that and meet people where they're at. And not only that, like, it's fun. It's fucking fun to play the game of apparent separation. It's like good. Like, once you see through it, when you don't see through it, it causes you suffering to feel there's this distance, there's these discrete people, and there's all these there's these dramatic life things that are happening that some people have and some people don't have, and it just so it's characterized by suffering. It's at the end of the day, this notion that is born of ignorance of the fundamental separation of things causes suffering in a real way. Because we think we're these finite beings that are going to die, and we suffer accordingly because our minds which are finite cannot grasp its own finitude. It cannot, like, in the fact that it is just as temporary as every other appearance on the screen. But there isn't... I guess I'm learning that duality is part of the I guess we're coming back to Parmenides. Maybe I will do Parmenides in this fucking video. Okay, here we go. In Parmenides' philosophy, there are two paths. Okay? Parmenides is an ancient Greek philosopher. He's pre-Socratic. He presented two contrasting paths to understand reality, and this comes from his poem called On Nature. There's two paths. They're called the way. One is the way of truth, and one is the way of seeming. The way of truth, he felt it was arrived at by reason and logic. So he classic Greeks would be like, oh, you arrive at it by the application of the thinking mind. which is not super opposed to Advaita Vedanta. Like, he's talking about the understanding of the way of truth. He's not saying like you actually attain the way of truth. The way of truth is just how it is. It's not something to be gained. It's what he's talking about is the understanding of it. But he says that the way of truth is the only true reality that is eternal, unchanging, and indivisible. It's not accessible through the senses, but through thought you can come to know it. And it basically says that being is and non-being is not, meaning there is nothing. Existence does not come into existence, and non-existence does not come into existence, and existence does not go out of existence. So what exists, like existence itself always is, and non-existence does not exist. There is no such thing as non-existence. Which is different. It's different from the appearance of things. It's different than something being manifest or not manifest. Because when it's unmanifest, it exists in potential. That's part of the way of seeming. In the way of truth, it says the world is one. Its reality is unified, undivisible, and whole. And that change is impossible. That it's literally, it is the same fundamental reality. And again, we're not talking about the things that appear. We're talking about like the existence itself is completely unchanging. It is always eternally the same. Even to say that it's eternal implies that time is like part of, like, it's fundamentally like real, whereas like time is also part of the way of seeming. Time is an appearance. In the way of seeming, it's the way of the world that it appears to our senses. It's the realm of opinion, illusion, and deception, and it appears, but it's not fundamentally real. We wouldn't say that it's not real, but it's relatively real, I guess is how Advaita Vedanta will put it. That our sensory perception is unreliable. Our senses deceive us all the time, and the world we perceive is not the true reality. It's characterized by opposites, so like hot and cold, light and dark. There's apparent opposites in this world that are, in fact, at the end of the day, the like spectrum, like there's an inherent connection between these opposites, but it's literally what I was talking about before. It's apparent duality. It's things appear to be fundamentally different from each other, and they have qualities which are on ranges of diametric opposites, and like at varying points on the spectrum, right? But based on these opposites, and that these things change and move. It is an inherently impermanent, and so that's part of what builds up to it's seeming. It appears, but I used to think that you had to push away the way of seeming to find the way of truth. That you reject the way of seeming, and you find something somewhere else called the way of truth. You perceive something else, and that's it. That means that knowledge has been solidified. In truth, the way of truth appears as. It is the way of truth is the fundamental basis of the way of seeming. Without the way of truth, the way of seeming would not appear. Because without existence, nothing can seem to exist. Without being capital, beings lowercase cannot be. I guess I'm realizing and coming to terms with that the way of seeming, there's a reason. If this motherfucker is gonna call one of the two paths the way of truth, why the fuck would you even tell us about the way of seeming, right? Like, what if one of them is literally called the way of truth, like the true reality of what it is? Why even bother with the way of seeming? Why even tell us about that? And the reality is because we're not supposed to reject what appears. It is useful. It is useful it's useful to know that it's an appearance, but it's useful because we appear to navigate it. We air quotes live in this world, and it's fun. If you know that it's an appearance, you can have fun with it. You can engage with it without the attachment to results, without the aversion or attraction to things that fundamentally causes suffering. And it allows you to navigate life in a way that is fulfilling and allows you to truly alleviate suffering while being free, like not having the attachments that cause you to suffer unnecessarily, and then being able to do work in the world to relieve the suffering of people who are who don't have this information, who to them what appears is fundamentally real. Appearance and reality are the same goddamn thing to most people. And we're at this point in our culture where there's such a huge metaphorical use of the phrase waking up from the Matrix, which I think it's ironic that taking the red pill means being right wing now, but because I think the Matrix is it definitely plays into the stuff that I've been talking about, but yeah. It's I think it's really cool. I guess what I'm saying is I'm seeing the fundamental. I'm now seeing the non-duality between non-duality and duality. I'm embracing duality for what it is, an appearance, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because duality does not cancel out non-duality. Yeah, so that's we're at 40 minutes, and I think this was a good one. I'm really happy with how this played out. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.